Yeah.
All right. So I have two more just kind of update things. One is Lindsay Clancy and one is Reckless Ben. Do you have a preference?
Let's do Clancy.
Okay. So the first half of this week was very, very difficult. On Monday, her therapist, Letitia Dukes, her notes said that Lindsay called Aspire Crisis Support on their 24-hour emergency program. She called twice, was given no help, and told to try a day program. She testified that Lindsay's husband, Patrick, joined a therapy visit and shared that Lindsay's anxiety was getting significantly worse. On Tuesday, Lindsay began to sob audibly as autopsies of her children were described. At one point, it sounded like she said, "I can't do this," while she was hysterical. And it was a real reaction from her. It wasn't fake. And honestly, it broke me. The judge, he had to call for a break so that she could kind of calm down. And, the camera lingered on her and she has two full-time medical staff that are with her in court. They kind of rushed to her side to console her. And it was sad. Really heartbreaking. And, the prosecutor could have stipulated to the deaths of her children, and then the jury doesn't have to hear about any of this stuff.
Yeah, but she wants them to hear it.
Right. And, people are saying it's to torment Lindsay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's gross.
I don't see this prosecutor having that ulterior motive. Everybody's giving this prosecutor a hard time, and I'm trying to find some grace because I can't imagine that she's just this much of a bad person.
Right.
That she's doing this. But I'm hoping that maybe she was assigned this case and she's a professional, so she has to do her job. And it's such a bad case that this is the only way that she can win it, which is her job.
Yeah.
So, hoping.
I agree with all that.
Anyway, there was a moment. I'm going to bring up this video.
Okay.
Let me pause it. Okay. So I pulled this from, let's see whose channel it is. The Megan Cuniff channel, she has a lot of good stuff on her channel. So shout out to her. And thank you for letting me steal this, even though I didn't ask. I appreciate you. Can you see that?
Not yet. It's loading.
Maybe take it off and put it back on. Oh, there we go. It's up.
Yeah, it's up now.
We're going to address the Commonwealth's motion regarding trial court security logs.
Thank you.
Counsel?
Your Honor, the Commonwealth is asking the court to allow the Commonwealth and the defense to have copies of a log that we were advised that, or we've seen, that the trial court security has for people who go back into the lockup area to visit with or tend to or what have you with the defendant during the course of this trial. Both myself and ADA Sprague have witnessed at several points. Obviously, we know there are medical staff that go back with the defendant, but in addition to medical staff, which are not really the primary thrust of this motion, it's that there have been other individuals that are not counsel that are permitted to go back there. And we're not alleging that that's inappropriate in any way, shape, or form. Clearly, the staff here, the security staff, has followed all appropriate protocols. We are aware that Dr. Zeisel has been back there. We witnessed a priest being allowed back there the other day. And we are advised that these visitors are kept as a log when they come, when they exit, what days, what times. And the Commonwealth is alleging that that's information that might be necessary for us to effectively cross-examine some of the defense witnesses that are going to be presented. Certainly with Dr. Zeisel, it could pose as a potential bias that he's there, that he's back there. He's being presented as an expert witness on the concept of criminal responsibility, and there are certain ethical rules that forensic psychiatrists and psychologists follow that he might be subject to cross-examination about, and this and the nature of his relationship with the defendant could be an area of fraud for cross-examination.
You can tell KShred's ready to.
Yeah, that's what I was looking at. He was like, he's not having it.
Nope.
Because the court records are not, these court records, I would suggest, are not in the care, custody, and control of the Commonwealth. Procedurally, we have filed the motion as a Rule 17 motion asking for access to the records just for this defendant.
How did they find two twin women with the same body type to be on a team? Same hair, same body. That's how they hire them. They're like, you got to look like this to work here.
Yeah.
During the course of the trial.
I mean, you're not looking for the name of the priest who went back there, are you?
Father Bob.
What, I mean, I understand. I'm just trying to figure out what the scope of this is. I understand the request for Dr. Zeisel amount of visits, because he's slated to possibly be a witness. So I understand that how that might be relevant.
Right.
The priest,
well,
I'm struggling with.
At this point, Your Honor, we haven't been furnished with exactly who defense is going to be calling as witnesses in their case. We have an idea from a witness list that was filed that keeps evolving as the trial progresses. So we don't know, for instance, if that person for some reason has a relationship to the defendant and he wishes to call her for some, or call him for some reason. So with the exception of, again, the nurses, we don't necessarily need their information. We know the purpose for why they're there and that they don't have a role in this case. But anyone else who has been permitted back there that is outside the medical staff, I would suggest the Commonwealth is entitled to at least know, and whether we are able to use that information if it becomes more apparent when the defense was underway with their case, that would come to, that we'd have to wait and see if that's the case. But certainly the fact that counsel has announced Dr. Zeisel as a testifying witness, that's information we believe we're entitled to.
All right, Ms. Reddington?
So first of all, here's the list. They want the list. We don't need a Rule 17 and a court order. They can just go over from there to there and get the list and see who's been going in and out to see Lindsay. I don't have a problem with that by no means whatsoever. Father Bob is a Roman Catholic priest who baptized these kids, who is very, very close to Lindsay. Not in a religious sense. They just like each other. She went to Mass sporadically. She's not a devout Catholic. She's a Catholic. She has a relationship with the father at that church. And that guy has been with her for 3 years, through the hospitals, through Brigham and Women's, going to Tewksbury. I haven't even talked to the guy since last week, first time I ever met him. Shook his hand. Nice man. After that debacle yesterday that we went through with the public,
Let's stay focused on.
I am staying focused.
Well,
This is what I'm dealing with.
I guess I'll tell you right now, so I can save you. I'm not ordering the name or address of anyone other than Dr. Zeisel.
Can I call him as a witness right now?
Cool. No, I'm gonna allow that so the Commonwealth can take a look at that record. Nobody else though. And then at some point, if the doctor is called, we may need if we have to address that, we can address it. So I'm going to allow the Commonwealth to have the information regarding Dr. Zeisel, and that's it though. Anyone else who went back there has been admitted pursuant to the appropriate rules of the security department in this case. Especially, I'm not ordering the name, address, or frequency of this Roman Catholic priest. I'm just not going to do it based on the record that I have now. If for some reason he's called as a witness, which I haven't seen that, I haven't seen an expectation even regards that. If that comes up, then the Commonwealth can renew this, and I may reevaluate. But right now, the Commonwealth's motion regarding security logs is allowed as to Dr. Paul Zeisel only. All right. Anything else we need to address before Monday? Commonwealth?
No, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Reddington?
No, thank you.
All right. So we'll see everybody on Monday. Thank you.
Yeah, KShred wasn't having it when they were
I mean,
doing that.
because it was stupid. She's entitled to see a priest.
Yeah.
So it just doesn't make sense. I mean, that's why the judge was just like, what are you talking about? No.
They're just trying to get up on people.
Right, but they know better.
They should. Maybe they don't.
Speaking of, we were on a program I like a lot. I don't know if you've watched it that much, called Justice Serve TV. They were having some of their viewers on. I'm going to play a little clip of it if that's okay.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
That was a good time. I appreciate them having us on.
Yeah, it was good. I'm having a lot of mixed emotions about the Lindsay Clancy case, and of course that's what we were talking about. And when we were watching that psychiatrist, Dr. Yosef, you know, I asked you a question and we kind of interrupted it to talk about, you know, your struggles with bipolar and taking an SSRI. So it was nice. I kind of got to talk about, you know, what I went through a little bit, and you got to talk about what you went through. So we have permission from them. We're allowed to play it. So I'm going to do that.
Okay.
Unless you don't want to watch yourself, because that might be weird.
I'm fine.
Okay.
So, Christopher, thank you so very much. I think I'd like to have both of you say a little bit about why you're coming on the show to talk to us in your own way rather than me paraphrasing. Because the point is, I want to make this about you and you're educating us. So, Christopher, do you want to go first, or Vanessa?
Yeah, sure. I'll go first. My name is Chris. I have been diagnosed with bipolar disorder since about 2017. And I've been through a few similar circumstances to what I've heard about in the Lindsay Clancy trial. And so I'm happy to talk about my lived experience as a person with mental illness.
Thank you. And Vanessa?
I just had a difficult ectopic pregnancy, and then a month later, difficult high-risk pregnancy. So I was already kind of stressed out, and then severe postpartum depression.
Okay. So, Vanessa, then let me start with you. When the judge ruled that the jury could not hear from women like you who have been through postpartum depression, some type of postpartum issue having to do with mental health, did you agree with him, or did you say, wait a second, why not?
At first, I had an issue with it, but now that I've really watched the trial, I think that it would be a lot more relevant for people like Chris, who dealt with being given an SSRI when they are bipolar. I strongly feel like that would be more relevant than women with postpartum psychosis, to be honest with you.
Okay, so that let me then because we're going to go back and forth. And Chris, tell people who don't know what an SSRI is, and tell people what the issue that Vanessa's talking about is, in case they have not watched this trial. So we're trying to educate.
Yeah, sure. So an SSRI is an antidepressant. I'm not a doctor. I don't know much about actual pharmacology, but what I understand and what I experienced was that if you suffer from mania as a function of your bipolar disorder and you take an antidepressant, you will go into a very manic state, a very for me it was like a very hyper paranoid and manic sort of break where I actually lost a job over it. A doctor didn't believe me when I tried to tell them I was suffering from mania. They questioned me about it. They said, well, what do you mean? You stay up all night? And I was like, yeah, I stay up most of the night. I sleep like 3 hours a night. Like I suffer from these manic symptoms. And they prescribed me Celexa, which is an SSRI, an antidepressant. And I went into a complete manic state where I couldn't function. I couldn't control what I was doing at work. I ended up having to take a couple of days off of work. I was working in a restaurant at the time, and they ended up firing me over it, over things that I'd done and said that I honestly have very little recollection of now, outside of just what I've been told about what happened during that incident.
And did you have one doctor, two doctors? And also tell people what mania is for those, again, who don't know, because
Okay, sure. Yeah.
we have, I mean, I have a very good friend who obviously suffers from what you suffered from. So I know about it, but I want to hear it from you. And I want you to tell our viewers, because I think you'll relate to them more than even me.
So when you talk about bipolar disorder, it's like two different sides, right? You have your mania and you have depression. Generally, people who have bipolar disorder suffer from mania and depression. Mania is like the excited, hyperactive state of that, but it extends past just being like having a lot of energy and being really determined. You drift into grandiosity, where like you start to imagine things much more grand than they are. Like you come up with these, I would come up with these insane sort of plots, sort of like ideas that seemed like really great, groundbreaking ideas at the time. And it was really just my brain spinning around way too fast and I couldn't execute on them. You're so hyper to a point where you're just kind of like a top spinning around, and a lot of inhibitions are lost in that state, and a lot of your judgment is questionable in that state. So you tend to take a lot of high risk moves, do a lot of high risk things. That was my experience with it, at least.
And were you with Vanessa at the time this was going on?
No, this was before we ever met. So I started seeking psychiatric help around 2016. I was probably seeing this nurse practitioner that prescribed me Celexa around 2017, 2018. And then I continued to see doctors after that. I've seen probably 3 or 4 different doctors. And that's something I was talking about before the show started. I was told by other people that have been in similar situations to me to have a healthy skepticism of all the doctors I meet. And if it didn't feel like something that made sense to you, or that you felt like your body was off with what they were recommending you to do, that you were in control and you could find a new doctor. You could potentially say, this doesn't seem like it's a good idea, or it's working for me. And that's really, especially with what's going on with this case, that's always something that's really stuck with me, because most people don't approach medicine that way. They go to a doctor, the doctor prescribes them something, they take it as it's prescribed on the medication. But that's how a lot of people end up in these scenarios where they're way over medicated on different types of drugs. They're doing different things that are probably making their lives harder than they are actually benefiting from.
And so,
Hey, I'm sorry, Linda, can I ask Chris a follow-up?
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
It kind of relates to what we're seeing in trial. 2 things that I noted. One was that healthcare providers, and specifically in this case, it's the latest nurse practitioner, they say that the patient has autonomy, that almost putting it off on the patient to figure out what's best for him or her. That I think is odd, number one. Number two, in your particular case, did you have
he will be coming back.
Oh, I'm gone. Am I gone?
He never
The
left.
show
No.
lost everyone for a second. Michael, we
Okay.
lost you.
She lost everyone for a second.
What
Am
you're
I-
seeing with nurse practitioner was where we actually lost the show for a second. We
Oh,
lost all
okay.
4 of us.
Okay, so number one was the autonomy issue. That the healthcare providers make it sound like, hey, patient's got autonomy, and we're just here. They're calling the shots. That seems odd to me. Number two, why is it? And maybe in your case it was different. Did you feel like there was somebody leading the plan, or were you bouncing around between various healthcare providers without real direction?
It's interesting because it's been both. So there were times where I felt like I was arguing with my health practitioners, where I was like I said, with that one nurse practitioner that prescribed me an antidepressant, even though I was telling her I thought I had symptoms of mania, and that shouldn't go together. In that instance, I felt like rudderless, like what you were saying. It was like I was arguing with my health practitioner about what I was experiencing, and they were kind of not taking my word for it and kind of questioning my own interpretation of how I felt. At some point, I got to a group of doctors with a well-respected medical institution, And I basically told them, I need you to take the wheel. I have no idea what to do. Like, you need to help me figure out a plan that works. I don't want to be on a ton of drugs. I just want to have like some sort of level-headedness, because I was experiencing something called mixed episodes, which is the symptoms of mania with all of the depression at the same time. And it's very chaotic and dangerous. So they did take the wheel at that point. That's when I started getting on the regimen I'm currently on, that I've been on for at least like 7 years now. And that's worked really well for me. But it's this weird situation where you could be taken down the wrong path by someone, and you have to be aware of that and be looking out for that. But at the same time, you're not a doctor. So you do need someone to guide you and at some point take the reins when you feel like you can trust them and lead you in a direction that will hopefully get you well enough to get your feet on the ground.
Chris, one of the things that they've said in court was that there's no blood test to talk about these drugs. But people I know have their blood tested constantly, once every month or once every 3 months, to make sure the drugs are at an equal level in their system. Have you experienced that?
More of the blood tests that I end up doing are to make sure that the drugs aren't affecting other parts of my body, like make sure my liver is okay, and make sure that like my there's other levels they want to check all the time for the type of drugs I'm on. For full disclosure, right now I'm on Abilify, which is antipsychotic, and I'm on Lamictal, which is a mood stabilizer. And that mix, they're not super high doses, but those mixes have made me even enough to feel like I'm in control of my life and I'm still the person I want to be, but without the cycling that I go through when I'm not on medication.
So it can be done. Let's go over, Vanessa, let's go over to you, because we also want to highlight women's health. Chris' story is wonderful in terms of educating us on the drugs.
I know, right?
But I don't think you can get pregnant right now.
I'm just learning about this.
Right. So I want to hear from you in terms of the pregnancy, because you had the ectopic pregnancy that had to change your hormones, and talk about your imbalances. I mean, Chris probably has some kind of chemical imbalance. Our viewers are picking that up in his system. We all know that when you're pregnant, your hormones change, especially when you may not give birth, and then you give birth. Talk to us about what you started to feel in terms of the symptoms of postpartum depression, which we know is different than psychosis, but I think it's important for people to understand.
That happened almost like a day or two after I got home from the hospital with the baby. I was producing more milk than I think people should, so I couldn't sleep because I'd make a mess. No matter what I did. I know that's TMI for some people, but I mean, I'm just going to be honest about it. So I would have to get up every like hour, even if the baby was asleep, just to take care of myself. So I started getting really, really sleep deprived. And with that sleep deprivation, I kind of became unreasonable. I wanted to do everything with the baby. I wanted to be like super mom, and I wasn't asking for help. I started to get dark thoughts at night, mostly when I was alone with the baby. I thought about killing myself. I had thoughts about killing the baby, not really killing the baby, but going crazy and doing that because I didn't want to. I don't know how better to explain that. It was just some sort of sleep deprived hormonal insanity that I could not get out of.
Yeah. And one of the things that you've mentioned to us is that you were frightened to even talk about it to a mental health professional.
I never, ever talk to a mental health professional about this, because I thought I would somehow, at the very least, have my child taken away from me.
So talk to us about that the fear of the government coming in and removing your child when there are so many women, I think 12, 13% of women suffer at least from postpartum depression around the United States, how that prevents other people, and that there has to be a change in that type of system. This is tragic.
I mean, I don't want to say normalize it, but I mean, I really think that if women were more open to talking about things, I mean, anything. I mean, I'm going through that right now with perimenopause. Like, I didn't know what to expect because people don't really talk about it. They just now are. But there are so many taboo topics that women just don't discuss that you get blindsided by. Another one I experienced was the ectopic pregnancy. I had no idea that could happen. None. Wow. And then I was just gutted. So I think it's important that we all talk about it, and it's really ugly and it's scary. And, you know, I snapped out of it. I did some things that were unusual because I had a self-awareness kind of about what was going on with me. And I thought, if I'm just around the baby less somehow without it being obvious, everybody will be safer. So I went back to work after 2.5 weeks. I just decided I'm going back to work. I hired a nanny. I told my husband at the time, not Chris, my ex-husband, that I couldn't go back to sleep if I got up with the baby. So he had to do it because he could just go right back to sleep. So he did. And, you know, we had a teenager in the house that helped me out a lot. So I was very lucky. If I had 3 little kids, I probably wouldn't have been.
Oh, this is like a tragic. Michael Bryant, you are listening. I can see your face is like your jaw is dropping down, because I don't think either of us, until we started listening to the Kelsey Fitzsimmons case and Lindsay Clancy case, even though we had Yates in the background and we had, you know, Brooke Shields talking to us, realized the extent of how horrible this is for people that need mental health treatment. And yet the country, the medical system, and the government doesn't seem to understand what the issues are. Michael.
Yeah, Vanessa, let me ask you this question. You know, now that you've gone through this, survived it, what is the one thing you would tell others to do, to be more proactive about?
I don't have any good advice for anyone at this point, and I'll tell you why. Watching this trial, I didn't ask anybody for help. I may have told you a month ago I should have, and that's what you should do, and I don't think so anymore. Look what happened to Lindsay Clancy. So,
yeah,
I mean,
that's frightening.
It is, and I'm sorry that I don't have an eloquent answer for you on that, but like this is scary, and we just need to get things changed.
Well, do you think that if you were to tell the jury, if you were one of the witnesses called to tell the jury exactly what you just said, because when you first wrote to us, you know, it was a different situation, but now listening, I think none of us expected the amount of, I guess, chaos that she got as a result of trying to seek help over and over and over. I can't say how many times over because there was so much of it. And then it just ended up in what we have here. And then now the government wants to put her in life for jail. You know, talk to us about that. That what would you say? I know I asked you at the beginning, but now that you're thinking about it, what would you say to the jury?
What would I say to them about her or women in general in that situation?
Both. You can choose. If you can't answer one, choose what you feel is the best that, you know, tells everyone listening, and including the government if they're listening.
Lindsay Clancy was not in control of her actions in any way. I think she had postpartum depression. I don't know about the psychosis, because to me it's been sounding more and more like it's the medication, like what Chris described. And she was trying to get help and everyone failed her. Her kids, unfortunately, aren't here anymore. And her body was the instrument of it, but it was not her fault. It was absolutely the health system failing her.
On that distinction between, postpartum depression and psychosis, I still don't think the jury's heard enough about the factors that lead you to one conclusion or the other. I think that's still very vague. But there were a couple of moments today where Reddington got from Nurse Gelada that in her experience, and he said, I think with postpartum psychosis, she had worked with 5 patients. Okay, so thank goodness the numbers suggest the psychosis portion of that condition is far more rare than depression, which is far more common. But he got her to admit that hallucinations and hearing voices. It happens. And I think for this jury, that's got to be a light bulb kind of moment that should erase. This is a defense, cross-examination. He's just turned the Commonwealth's witness into his witness by making the point that, yeah, this psychosis can lead to exactly what Lindsay Clancy said happened before she took the lives of her kids. And I just think that's critical information.
I saw a comment on here where someone said I muddled through this on my own, no med supplements, just let it ride its course. Yeah. And that was probably not the right decision. But I was too terrified to ask anyone for help. And luckily for me, I had a scary wake-up call and I was able to snap out of it. But, I think most women do.
Yeah, and they used to call it, and I see that someone's mentioning right now, a long time ago, somebody has the baby blues. We didn't know what the baby blues meant at that time, but it was truly, a condition, a physiological or psychiatric or psychological condition. And so that's where I'm going to bring Chris back into it. Chris, your experience with these type of drugs, could you see yourself developing a psychosis from these overlay of drugs?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, without a doubt. And what's funny about it, well, not funny, excuse me, what's interesting about it to me is that they've been talking a lot about Seroquel. I've taken Seroquel. I would not recommend anyone taking Seroquel. At one point, it was a drug I kept around as part of my regimen as like a short circuit drug. In case I went into complete rage, I could take it and it would short circuit me out and I would go to sleep. But it is heavy. It is a heavy drug that you feel very outside of yourself. You feel very slowed down, and it would make me so angry because I didn't feel like I could function. I felt like I was crawling through mud essentially. So these drugs can do a lot to a person that is not necessarily what they would normally behave like. And the amount that she was taking and the combinations that she was taking, I mean, there's no telling what the side effects could be.
Yeah, let's talk about that, Chris, in your experience, because they were talking about this titration. I always like to learn new things. I remember titration from chemistry class. They're talking about going from 100 milligrams. This is the Seroquel, 100 milligrams day 1, 200 day 2, 300 day 3, 400 day 4. What does that tell you, having taken that drug?
That sounds crazy. Like when I titrate a drug, it's for like weeks. So it's like taking 25 milligrams for 5 days, taking 50 milligrams for 5 more days, and then you work your way up to a regular. The amount of milligrams they're saying, I'm not a doctor, so again, this is just my anecdotal experience with these drugs, but that sounds like a lot of Seroquel. And to be ramping up that quickly, like day after day after day, I wouldn't do it. I would not be in a good mood if I did that.
Well, I know that there was some testimony today, and Michael, you can tell us that Lindsay Clancy was turned away from one program because they felt the amount of drugs was causing her the depression. And I think you mentioned that when you were talking to us. But then how do you get out of it? Was there any answer in court? Because Chris is saying you need to have doctors that you trust, and then, go with how your body feels. And Vanessa's saying she was scared. She wished she could have doctors that she trusts, but scared the ramifications were so great about losing her kids. And so she realized the risks and basically got the risk lessened by going back to work, getting a nanny, getting her ex-husband to help her, et cetera, et cetera. But realizing the risk. But it sounds that Lindsay Clancy was like a zombie at some point and didn't realize any risks.
Well, yeah, and that again gets back to the fact that she had all these overlaying healthcare providers that weren't talking to one another and didn't know what the other hand was doing. So, and that's what it led to. She needed effectively to be detoxed so that they could look at her base levels and figure out what are her issues without meds. Because when it's all muddled with meds, the healthcare provider has nowhere to go. And that, I think, I don't know for sure, but I think that's why the Women's and Infants Hospital was so hesitant to bring her on board. They said it was because she didn't seem to have the intent or the plan to kill herself, just the ideations, the intrusive thoughts. But I'm thinking.
I'm sorry to correct you. I'm pretty sure that the Women and Children's Hospital said that she couldn't be in their program because she was on too many medications.
Right, which is the antithesis of what she was going there for. She was supposed to go
Right.
there for 2 weeks to kind of figure it all out, but they wouldn't take her because she was already so medicated. And that medication is what arguably led to those suicidal, intrusive thoughts. So how do you win? You know, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't.
Yeah, that was a lot of the experience that I went through. So, you know, my first real attempt, like saying like, okay, I think I need to see a mental health provider to actually figure out how to get, you know, at a stable level. Kind of like having a moment of awareness of how unstable I was. Because when you're in it, you don't know, right? That's your lived experience. So when I first did that, the experience was argumentative, and it was me arguing with the practitioner about it. That ended, and then it became me giving somebody else the wheel and somebody else sort of trying different things on me. But luckily, they were reputable doctors. If they had prescribed me the same way that Lindsay Clancy was prescribed, I have no idea how I would have behaved, because the types of drugs that she was on in combination, like they were giving her Seroquel, which is really, really strong. Like it does a lot to you. They were giving her the antihistamine, which makes you super tired and doesn't really help at all from what I understand. Yeah, and then the antidepressants, which have all kinds of different side effects associated with not being able to sleep, different things like that. I don't know how anyone can survive like that.
Well, I'll tell you what, by the way, I want to say hello to Bob Mata, who is here in our chat. Vanessa and Chris, we'd like to have you on again as this case progresses, if you're willing to do so, because I think
totally.
listening to the two of you, it's just amazing. I mean, I hope the doctors are listening to the two of you, and the government is, because we have to do something. And I really want to give you the last words of your own story before we sign you off for tonight's show. So,
All right. Did you fall asleep?
No, I did not fall asleep. That was a good time. I was on mute.
Yeah, that was really cool. I had a good time doing it, and you know, maybe they'll have us back, maybe they won't. We'll see. I mean, it was nice to be able to just be so brutally honest. I mean, I talked about breast milk. Like, I just wanted to be able to put, you know, all the ugliness of it out there, and it seems like you did too. So that's really good.